What's up, guys? Welcome to Blake's Garage. We got Project Free 36 over here. This is the BMW E36 that I got for free about a year ago now, and it's gotten to the point of where we went to from you know, cheap stuff, getting it all kind of dialed in, to now, well, I got some nice wheels for it, some nice tires for it, so now it's time to throw, you know, some of those fancy parts for it. Now the funny thing is every time I throw some money at this thing, it's like more than what I paid for it because I got it for free. But anyways, that makes me feel like I can just spend that much more money on it. So what we got here from Cardone is a rebuilt Z3 power steering rack. Now what this is going to do is quicken up the steering ratio on the car. Plus the E36, if you guys know, if you have, well, really any BMW, E30, E36, E46, probably even E92s and, you know, so on, they have a problem. That is power steering leakage. And I could pretty much bet that if you have one of these older cars, it leaks. So while I'm in there and replacing that stuff and hooking it up to these areas right here, might as well just upgrade that stuff at the same time with some stuff from these guys, Chasebays. They make the absolute best stuff for doing a upgrade, and none of this stuff leaks. So you have AN lines here, you know, you got this nice looking, well, this is not an AN line, but you know, it's a low pressure return line here with a nice clamp that looks like it is squash free or squishy free, if you will. AN line right here, this is a -6, and you have, you know, your new little fittings here as well, then a new fitting here also. So we'll probably go, I don't know, I'll probably install these beforehand, at least the bungs. The bung is this guy right here, what it screws into, and then, you know, we'll kind of return it into this deal. Honestly, I'm gonna have to figure out where everything goes, because I feel like I have one will go into that, boom, oh yeah, power steering pump, boom, and then this is the high pressure line here, boom. So this is basically the feed from, pretty sure this is the feed line right here. I want to say this is the low pressure return, and this is the high pressure feed from the power steering pump itself, because that's what it looks like to me, since this is a, you know, heavier duty steel right here. So anyways, if I didn't mention it before, this quickens the steering ratio from, I think you're at 3 turns lock to lock on an M3 E36 stock, or this is a regular E36, but you're right around 3 turns. This brings you right to around 2.7 to 2.5, something like that. It'll actually be about 2.5 once I finish with some of the other fancy stuff that'll be going on this car in one of the next videos. We're gonna be upgrading, like I said, to more fancy suspension components. We do have coilovers on the car now, but now it's time to actually like throw some money at the car, like I was saying. So we'll be putting on some nice coilovers in the future. Haven't purchased those yet, so drop down below what ones you think I should get. I'm honestly thinking about putting 2-way coilovers on this thing. Again, like I said, it's going to cost a little bit of money, but I think it'd be cool. I almost want to throw a CAE on this thing. Just, I don't know, $1,200 shifter on a free car. Why not? You know what I mean? Anyways, all right, so we got the car in the air. Make sure before you go any further and kind of skip the step, make sure to check these areas right here. Take a razor blade, do not scratch, but very lightly take off any paint that you can, so you don't scratch it or anything, because you need a nice flat machine surface area. But just make sure there's no paint here, because if there's paint in the inside of this area, when you go to put your fittings on, well, it's not going to work out too good for you, because basically, you know, you're not going to make a nice mating surface. So that's no bueno. Man, like I said, here's that little crush washer that goes on there. This one came from that hose right there. Boom. And that is threading in nicely. We'll go ahead and torque those down as well. Size, yes, it is smaller, so you're going to take that one, and that one's going to go to this compression style one. Now I'm not sure if it's this side or this side, but either way, right now it does look like it's the same fitting, I think. Let me see. The side here that was on this side does seem to be the smaller fitting, so it does seem to be Like it works like this. Now when tightening AN fittings, these are aluminum. So when you tighten them up, you actually want to use an AN wrench if you have one. If not, you may mar these up. So just be very careful. Don't over torque them or anything like that. But yeah, I'll go ahead and torque those in right now. Put the caps back on those if I can, so they don't get marred up. Probably just gonna go ahead and disconnect the tie rods first, make sure I can get those off. I will be replacing the tie rods with some nice MRT ones. I actually have a bump steer correction kit that you guys are gonna see. I'll put in new ball joints. These are actually all new A-arms, or these are all new control arms up front that I actually put in. Pretty much the whole suspension on this car is rebuilt, but yeah, we'll be doing even more to it. Did all the rear subframe stuff, welded in the reinforcements, all 95D polyurethane. I got all polyurethane motor mounts, polyurethane trans mounts, sway bars. Man, the thing's got a lot of stuff. So right here we have the power steering guy, and you can see this hose right here. It does have this little barbed fitting, so that's where that one is going to go. Then it looks like we got this banjo style fitting on this one, which looks like it's going down to the rack itself, which must be the high pressure side of this. And let's see, okay, and then we got this one here, which I think is the low pressure return, that is kind of running through this little cooler. We're not really going to use that anymore. We may add a Chasebays cooler if we need to. I have one of those on my E30. I just didn't buy one for this because it did cost a bit more money. As far as the steering rack goes too, you know, we got the boots on here, which these boots are actually fine. There's nothing wrong with this rack besides, you know, a horrible, I mean, this may be, I think it's a combination of oil leak and you know, and a whatever power steering leak. Most likely the oil leak is coming from the whole oil area, whatever. I can't think of the name of it now, but it has like this little O-ring gasket that goes on the side of the block. That's most likely where it's leaking from. So 16mm bolts right here. There's probably a nut on top, but we'll see if we get lucky. Wow, not getting lucky. Kind of got lucky with that one. That guy's on there pretty tight. I'm just using the stubby, so grab a bigger impact. It's that loose. Bust this one loose. Okay. Look at that. Nice zinc coated hardware, man. That's how stuff in California looks. Very, very nice. Okay, so now I think this will pull forward. Yep. Not really sure how much, because we're gonna have to disconnect the steering area, but I think I can pull that out a little bit, and I could see what I can do with the steering knuckle, or the steering shaft there, getting that taken off. So now we kind of got this loose, which is cool. We can go ahead and disconnect the all right, it's kind of peeled back the boot right here, so you can see there's this little washer. It's bent up, so we're gonna have to bend that down, and then we could get some channel locks around this or whatever, or if you have the right size wrench, which I do not think I do, and go ahead and remove the inner tie rod right here. So I went ahead and broke those loose. Inner tie rod, boom. You can see we got this little guy's kind of like a little keeper for the nut. Pound that out, and it'll do some things. The U-joint for the rack itself. This is an important screw to obviously get, or this is an important bolt to get tight, but also to get off as well. Hopefully you guys can get this thing off of here. You can see the fittings here. High pressure in the front, low pressure here, going to the cooler, the OE cooler. I don't even know how much that thing works. It's kind of like, I don't know, I guess sort of a heat exchanger, if you will. And then it goes up to there. So yeah, like I said, maybe we'll upgrade that. I'll kind of see how it feels. This one right here should make a bit of a mess. This is honestly one of the main reasons you can tell that this car is still on the stock fitting here, as far as I know. I mean, unless BMW did this, but because it's got this original style of hose clamp, if you will. As far as the other lines go, I could pretty much leave them kind of attached to the rack for now. I'm gonna take off this high pressure line. This guy can now kind of just be tugged out of here, I think. Ah, jeez. You know what? I'm gonna have to replace the steering guibo rubber. Yeah, that is definitely gonna get replaced there. Also, I wasn't 100% planning on that, but seeing all the freaking flex there now, it's happening. So yeah, I want to get that done too. I was thinking about doing the race German one, but all right. So I'm pulling the rack out now. See the input shaft to the steering rack right there, and then where is it? Right back there, I have the steering rack from the column just chilling. So I actually picked up this new part. Let me show you guys that. I got this from Race German. This is a new steering knuckle for the steering rack. This was for E36. It should fit. You can see there's these set screws here that go on. I know some people don't like how it sets onto just like a threaded area, saying that might mess it up. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but also this thing's not really gonna go bad, and this is something you have to be aware of. I'm gonna see if I can't get that to set in the little groove of the power steering rack, but let's go ahead and try to throw it on there and basically get this thing all lined up. All right, so this side of the shaft was a little bit harder to get on, so I went ahead and just pulled the rack out again, because since it's only 2 bolts, one there and one there, so that pulls out pretty easily. Now I'm gonna slide this back in here and try to get it onto the shaft, the back side of the shaft at the same time. We'll throw the 2 bolts in and be good to go. Those are the hookups. Those right there are the hookups for the Chasebays. Like I was saying, that is the high pressure line. That's the low pressure right there. So we'll go ahead and get those things hooked up. Show you here again, and you can see the Chasebays lines. We got the AN fittings on there, looking nice. They're just capped off. This is the high pressure AN fitting from the power steering pump going down, and I just kind of have it floating there, and we'll hook it up. Now we're gonna look up in there, and if you guys can see, I know this camera's pretty sharp, so you'll see the threaded rod in there, and then you can see the, you know, the joint itself. So we're gonna install that set screw. We want to make sure that we have enough in. So as you can see, we have enough in there that it's not gonna pop out, and then we'll set these in. I know people don't really love the fact that it does kind of gouge that shaft, but if I have an issue with that, literally I'll just replace that shaft with a whole one piece. Race German makes that as well, which replaces that whole thing. But this pretty much gets rid of all the rubber stuff, so I was kind of fine with this. I'm just gonna leave the other stuff OE, just because I think it's easier to have that stuff break, the OE stuff, than the aftermarket stuff, just in case of an accident or something like that. Hopefully that shaft will still snap if it would like to. 16mm nut and a 16mm bolt on the power steering rack here. Pretty easy, just find the top, send it down, good to go. I'm gonna put a little bit of Visa torque stripe on here just to let us know if this thing has moved at all. It's kind of a easy way to nut and bolt check your car. If it's moved, you will see it has moved. It doesn't line up with the original line, so that's great. Okay, so now we can move on to up here. That is the high pressure line right here. So that is gonna go to the front line right here. Let me see if I can show you guys. That one, top one right there, closest to the rack. So you kind of want to leave this a little bit loose. That way we're not going to cross there, and we just want to get it on here like finger tight, really, because this may need to move a little bit. And then we'll put the return hose up into the canister, which is going to go into that mounting bracket up there. See that circle right there? That's the circle. That is the the OE mounting bracket. However, it just uses a little bit of a spacer, and then we use the Chasebays can, and it gets in there and it looks beautiful. When tightening up AN fittings, you're gonna wanna use an AN wrench. AN wrenches are actually made of aluminum, so it's a softer metal, just like the AN fittings. They look like this. It'll say the size of the nut. So I always pick up the Chasebays wristband or sweatband. This actually goes around the top of the fluid container right here, or the reservoir. And what that helps with is any additional spills or like overflowing or anything like that. This is what this thing looks like. It's got a really cool cap because no matter kind of how you put it on here, it just looks good when it's tightened down. There's internal baffling. Oh, no, I guess there's not. This is just kind of, yeah, I guess it's kind of got like a little baffle in there, but yep. You want to make sure the AN fittings here are tight. There are slight little O-rings on the bottom here, so you may want to lube them up before, but make sure to get these things nice and tight, that way it doesn't leak. All right, so I went ahead and slipped on the feed line right here. As you can see, we have a little fitting. Like I said, on an S52, so like an M3, it'll have a banjo fitting. So if you guys are doing this on an E30 with the S52 swap or something like that, you'll see a different fitting, quite possibly, depending on if you're doing an M52 or an S52. Same with a E36. So just so you guys know, when you buy the kit though, it'll ask you what motor you have, and then as long as you select the right engine, you'll be fine. But if you bought this kit before you bought the motor and you thought you were going to do one engine and you didn't, well, there you go, that's why it doesn't fit. So we're gonna tighten this down right here, and then we'll get the little piece going on right there, and I'm gonna thread on the low pressure return on the pump right now. Alarm going off. I gotta get going, but yep. It's gonna slide down in there and into the spacer fitting, and later on I'm gonna tighten all that stuff down. So cool. Okay, so I put the canister in here. Gotta orient this thing out of the way that it likes. We got it all hooked up. That hose there was basically a 1-inch adapter, or the AN fitting here for this bigger hose, this feed hose for the pump, was basically like a 1-inch. So I just used a box end wrench for that. Got these AN fittings tightened down now, so those things are good to go on there and on the power steering rack. So we should be all good to go. Now we just need to fill up the reservoir with power steering fluid. So if you guys are wondering what type of fluid I'm gonna use these Redline. I'm using Redline high temp ATF. These take ATF fluid. I recommend to get some high quality stuff, as it's obviously not something that you think about too often, and you want to put some high quality stuff in there because it does get kind of hot. It's the Chasebays power steering kit installed, and we got the Z3 rack in the car, so I just kind of bled it out. Rack looks good down here, feels good. It's a little bit tight, but I think that under load it's probably got some air in it. Under load with like trying to push against, I think it'll bleed it a little bit better going back and forth. So we'll kind of see how that is. I'll keep an eye on it. But I mean, the steering shaft feels good and everything like that, so that is absolutely awesome. Now I'm gonna go ahead and finish up my other install, which is gonna be the tie rod ends and doing the bump steer correction kit. So we'll finish that up. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll talk to you soon. I'll have a review video on all this stuff coming up and let you guys know how it feels. I'm really excited to have sharper, quicker turning and all of that, plus like all the Heim joints that I'm going to be putting in and everything. It's going to make it awesome, very sharp, very nice. So thanks for watching. Later, and wrench on.